Doc, thanks so much for your time. So farming has become as easy as using your mobile phone. Is this what this app is saying?
It's always been easy, but what we're now trying to do is make it even easier,
right?
Particularly for decision making, all the way from a primary producer to a particular farmer that has very important commercial decisions to make. So that they have the information on their fingertips. If you actually look at many of the large-scale commercial farmers, in many respects, what you'll find them around their hands is an iPad, and they're looking at the number of parameters. They're looking at production parameters and whether the tractor that might be on a particular part of the farm is doing the right kind of fertilizer on a particular spot, and they're able to detect that and make those particular changes.
From their phone?
From their iPad. And some of them are using their iPhones, and most of that is driven through apps. So what we have done as the Agricultural Research Council is collect all the information that we've been generating and put it all into a single app so that it can be made available to as many farmers as possible. But not only farmers, but even other people that have interests in having some insight as to if they want to know about beef production, what would be a production guideline? If they want to know about a particular animal disease, what sort of information can they get? Instead of looking for a book, they can just download the app from the App Store, and they'll be able to get that information, and they'll be able to use it.
So this is all-inclusive information about farming?
It's all-inclusive information about livestock. It's all-inclusive information about crops. It's all-inclusive information about processing. It's all-inclusive information about plant health, because plants also get diseases, and so on. And animals get diseases as well. But there's also information about training that is available that can be offered by the Agricultural Research Council. So we as the Agricultural Research Council conduct the primary research, and we generate all of that data. And we publish it as has been the history, very much like in many institutions, research institutions. But what we've now decided is to now collect all of that, consolidate and integrate that information into a user-friendly app that people can then begin to use and be able to access it and use it as part and parcel of their decision-making process.
I mean, Doc, you mentioned something about they can use it on their iPad, but I imagine it would also be accessible for Android users?
Yes, it's available for both for Android and for iPhones, and it's a free app.
Right. Right, I love that price. It's the best price.
Yes.
But you say it's called ARC Hub app. What's it called?
ARC Hub, which is a Hub HUB.
Right.
And they can download it from the App Store or even on Google Play through for Android phones, and then they can almost immediately begin to use it.
Right. Has this been rolled out so far? I mean, how many farmers do you know that are using this technology? Well,
we spent about 2.5 months doing a test, which meant that we allowed a number of users out there, some of our employees. We've got about 3,000 employees, but we allowed even farmers and other people out there. So we had almost about 8,000 or so people during the test phase, using it and trying to see how accessible it is and how it gives them the kind of information. And we launched it yesterday at the Nampo Agricultural Show, and a lot of people were downloading it and beginning to use it. So our estimates at this point is that we've hit more than 10,000 people already using it.
Right. I mean, what would you say in terms of the information that is available on this app? What would you say the one thing is that farmers will be using the most in terms of the deficit that this app is trying to address in the farming sector?
Well, there are two things. One is to know where to find the source of information, and that is accurate and reliable. Because sometimes even when you go on the internet, that information is not necessarily coming from a reliable source.
All right.
We are an established national research institution that doesn't just load information. We load verifiable information that is very reliable. So that's the one side. The other part is the fact that us being a national research institution are now providing and making this information accessible at any point in time, 24/7, rather than having to wait till the next morning to call us or to send us an email or that sort of thing.
And can farmers themselves engage in the kind of information that you export?
Yeah, exactly. They just basically go into the app, look at it, and they can use it as part and parcel of their decision making.
Of course, the farming industry right now is under the spotlight as we draw up to the elections. I mean, contentions over land. Does this app do anything in the way of land reform, or perhaps, you know, hitting the hot spots of which farms could potentially be up for expropriation without compensation?
Not necessarily. Remember, this is in large measure the technical information about the crops, around the livestock, and around production mechanisms and so on. We haven't incorporated yet, not yet. We haven't incorporated yet issues around which land they could use, which one is up for expropriation, because that's a very different issue, and it deals with social dimensions around policy making and policy decision making, and that's not where we are. We're more on the technical side of it, so that if you're going to decide that you're going to be planting, what crop to plant where is the kind of information that you'll be able to get through this particular app, because that then enables you to be able to make the right decisions and invest the right amounts of money to be able to ensure that your enterprise in the farming business makes the money. Okay, now understood. Prof, thanks so much for this, and I'm sure it will be well received by the farmers, of course. That was Dr. Shadrack Moephuli, who's the CEO of the Agricultural Research Council.